My name is Terry. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. A little bit about me. I am a knitter out of Saskatchewan, the prairies of Canada, where it is so flat you can watch a dog run away for days. That's kind of a local joke. It is a fairly nice, bright, sunny winter day outside. It's probably about -5 right now, which really isn't that bad, but it's gorgeous outside. You can definitely tell spring is on its way, which I am, fingers crossed, so excited about. I really hope that it comes soon and that the groundhog doesn't predict a longer winter. I have a feeling it's going to be a bit of a shorter winter this year. Spring hopefully will come soon. It's just the sun feels different lately, and that is always so exciting. I'm not sure what else to talk about. I think in my last video, as of recording this video, I have not posted the first one. I think I'm hesitant a little bit to get that one out into the world, but I wanted to make sure that I was trying to be consistent and film another one, and hopefully within the next day or two I will get the first one, the editing done and posted so that I can work on this one and post it. My 2025 goals for this year is to start and try to be consistent with the YouTube channel. I did try to start one a few years ago. I did already mention this before in the last one, but it didn't do very well because I got tired of it really quickly. I didn't have the right motivation behind it. It was more like I just want to start a YouTube channel because everybody else is starting a YouTube channel. And yet it is something that every time I watch a creator that I love talk about their passion, their knitting, their sewing, whatever it is that they decide to put out into the world, it makes me want to do this. So we're giving it a try. And yes, I am a hand tucker. If that bothers you, that's unfortunate because it's going to happen a lot. So we should probably get right into the knitting. This podcast is going to have a lot of different things in it because I have a lot of different passions. I know I'm going on another rant. I have a lot of passions. So knitting is my primary passion. It's slow going. I do also really like sewing. Sewing is one of those things that you can knock out a project really quickly, and I do like to add that to my repertoire occasionally when I feel like I really need a finished object to help with my motivation, help my creative juices flow. And sometimes you just can't make what you want for a project out of knitting. So I do knitting, sewing, a little bit of crochet, tiny little bit of crochet. I would like to do a crochet sweater this year. Another 2025 goal is I would love to quilt myself a blanket. I did a few quilts when I was younger. I made my best friend a stained glass bell quilt for graduation, and I think that was probably the last time I quilted anything. It took a very long time. I finished my project and was like, yep, I'm good. I'm done. Definitely chase that dopamine. And then when the project's done, it's just kind of like, okay, I'm good. Let's do something else. But knitting is my great passion. I've been knitting, as I said, probably close to 20 years. And it's just something I think I'm always going to do. So my knitting is going to take precedent. And surprisingly, I actually have a finished object to show you guys from last week. So I did show this last week while it was still on my needles. This is a cowl that I designed and made for myself. It is double layered. It's a tube that I knit to double this length, and then I grafted the edges together in pattern. When I say in pattern, I messed up a little bit. And the only person I can blame is myself. So I knew that with this pattern, I was going to need to stop one row short of completing a full repeat of the pattern. I did 5 repeats for this entire length and structure, and then I was going to graft in pattern that very, very last row, and I did 1 row too short. So I don't know if you can tell where my oopsie is. Maybe you can. It's on the inside. No one's going to see it. I also have this area at the top here that I showed before where I'd put this away for quite a while and then picked it up again and forgot how to hold my yarn for color work. And I ended up holding the main color as my contrast yarn. So typically, I think fairly typically, all the videos that I have watched kind of follow this habit or pattern, is that your main color is in, like if you knit both hands, your main color is in your right hand, your contrast color is in your left hand, and I had switched them. So my tension is really bad in that area. But again, it's on the inside. So no one's going to see it. No one really knows when I'm wearing this that it's there except for me. The other thing with this project, and I actually quite like how this turned out, but the 2 different yarns that I used have very slightly different, there we go, very slightly different gauges. The white they're both worsted. The white is slightly thicker in diameter. So it is pushing out ever so slightly to get this very 3D effect. You can kind of see a little bit on the ends where it's poking out. And I have given this a really, really good steam block. I'm a little hesitant to wet block it. I think I will, just to see what happens, see if I can get a little bit better consistency in the yarn stitches, like in my stitches, than what I have right now. But that's just unfortunately like the reality of things when you are knitting with slightly different weight yarns. And technically they're the same weight, but I get fewer wraps per inch, maybe like one or 2 fewer wraps per inch with the white than I do with the main background color. But I really, really like how this turned out. I will try to insert a little bit of B-roll with me wearing it because it fits really well. I think if I had done 1 fewer repeat of the pattern, it would have sat maybe like, oh, I just hit my mic. Hopefully that's not terrible. If I had done 1 fewer repeat of the pattern, it would have sat just under my chin without any pooling. But with this height, I can pull it up just underneath my nose, or I can stuff my nose into it if it gets cold out. If you live in a cold climate, You are probably familiar with the phenomenon of having your breath literally sucked out of your lungs because it's so cold. Or that's what it feels like. You get hit in the face with a gust of sub-zero air, and it just seems to dive right down into your lungs, and it just rips the air right out of you. Um, and it's not the most pleasant. So you don't always need, sound like such a Canadian, you don't always need a toque. You don't always need mitts. Sometimes you just go outside, you're running from A to B, and I don't tend to wear toques if I'm running from my car to my office or from the car to the house. Basically, anywhere that I'm going in and out, I'm going to be walking for less than a minute or two. I don't tend to wear hats. I do try to have mitts with me. Whether or not they get put on is a different story, but having something that you can stuff your nose and your respiratory system into, that helps buffer those cold blasts of air, is, I find, really, really helpful. So I do like to have a higher collar jacket or something like this, a shawl that I can pull up a little bit or just tuck my face into. Probably not a problem that you have in warmer climates, but that is something that I find happens fairly often around here. So I'm actually quite happy with how this turned out. Blah, 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 blah. We might edit that out. We might not. That's okay. So last video, I only showed a few of the projects that I was working on. That cowl, which I need a name for. I think I'm going to do a pattern for that one because it's fairly straightforward. The pattern writing should be fairly straightforward anyways. I have the pattern chart for the color work already mapped out on Stitch Fiddle. So that'll be pretty easy to print out. There was that one. There was the shawl for my mom. My Selpu mittens that I did finished. And then the halibut cowl. I haven't worked on that. I just kind of wanted to get that one off the needles, this one that I just showed. So that's kind of my next one. I think I have a total of 9 different projects that were whips when I took inventory at the beginning of the year. And I really want to try and get even down to half. I'd like to get down to half of my works in progress before I cast on something new. We'll see if that happens. I'm getting itchy fingers for something new. Because some of these projects have been more long-term projects. Certain things I might need to cull, but I haven't quite gotten to that point yet. I need to sit down and think logically whether or not I'm actually going to continue the project, since a few things have just been sitting forever in my closet in timeout. I might try working on them again, see if I can re-energize my desire to complete it. And if it's still not giving me joy to work on, then maybe it's just going to go in the scrap or the frogget pile. But one of the things that I do really, really want to finish here in the next month, by the end of February, at the very latest, I want to finish this, is a sweater that I'm currently working on. This is a Plotulopi yarn, same as the green cowl that I showed last week. This is in the black colorway. It is a round yoke sweater that I designed. It has this very light, I know it's hard to see because of the color of the yarn. Maybe it'd be easier on the sleeve. There's this very slight, oh, there we go, very slight texture that I added in every 10 rounds. I'm looking at my phone mirror down here so I kind of have an idea of if I'm in frame or not. But yeah, you can kind of see the slight texture that happens about every 10 rounds. And I love this sweater so far. I have a sneaking suspicion, hopefully it's not messing with my mic. I have a sneaking suspicion that when I knit this, that I increased the yoke too fast, because there is definitely a little bit of a ruffle, a little bit of a wave in the body when I start doing or divide it out for the sleeves and the body. Initially, when I started knitting this, I had finished the body and I had knit it at probably 12 to 15 inches of positive ease. I really wanted a big, slouchy, slubby, light sweater because this is a very light yarn to wear, because it's basically a singles that was never twisted into a singles. It's still more of a pencil roving. You can just see that it's got very little structure to it, but it's got a fairly long staple length so that when you knit it, it makes a nice sturdy fabric. So I really do like this yarn. Anyways, it was way too big. It was way too big. There was way too much fabric pooling under the body, or I guess under the bust, because I unfortunately am on the bustier side. So things don't, I can't really have things that have quite that much ease in it. I have a sweatshirt that has, I was trying to kind of match the sweatshirt, but it's raglan style. And it's got a denser weight to this, so it kind of holds its shape a lot better. And that's cute. That's really good around the house or with like high-waisted jeans, workout pants, things like that. And that's kind of what I wanted this for, so that I could wear it, a slightly classier version of that. Why is my brain dying? A slightly classier version of that sweatshirt that I could pair with some nice high-waisted jeans or with like a maxi skirt for transitional periods, maybe in the summer when it's cooler. It was too much. It was just too much. So I had to rip the entire body back. And it was a bit. It was quite a bit of yarn to rip back. And with this style of yarn, this roving style, as I mentioned in the last video with mohair, you're almost better to not rip it back if you can at all help it, because it doesn't like to rip back unless you maybe paired it with some mohair and you have the silk that you can use to pull on. This doesn't pull well. There are so many spots with the yarn, and I did try to use as much of it as I could that I ripped back. It thinned out in quite a few spots, so I'm definitely going to try keeping a certain amount of the last ball. I'm going to have quite a bit of the cake left, and I think I want to use some of it in a different project, but I'm going to keep a certain amount, maybe about 10 grams, reserved just for fixing holes, because I have a feeling that some of the thinned areas are going to let go in time, and I want to make sure that I can repair this sweater if and when that point comes, because I really like it. I think it's going to be really cute. I'm halfway done the first sleeve, and then I just have to do the last sleeve. The nice thing about this yarn too is it holds on to itself really well. So as you can see, my second sleeve, I don't have any sort of lifelines. I don't have anything in here to keep my stitches intact. I should probably fix that because I do see that one or two of them have pulled. But yeah. So I had to rip back the body and I cast on less underarm stitches. I went from, I think I had like 17 total underarm stitches. Or did I do 12 per side? I can't remember. It's been a while, but I only did 4. I think I cast on 4 underarm stitches, and then on my first body round, I decreased out 2 to try and tighten up the corners a little bit. So it's almost exactly the front and back yoke amount for just dividing out the sleeves. But this has been on my needles for such a long time. I absolutely need to have it off my needles. I'm giving myself until the end of February as a time frame so that I'm going to work on it. This is going to happen. Yeah. It just needs to be done. It needs to be done. That's kind of my whole thing. Next project that I really want to get done that is still a WIP is a pair of socks that I have in this cute little bag. I got this off of Etsy. It has a handmade tag here with a website, www.knitterbag.com. Oh, there we go. And it is so cute. It is like the perfect sock bag size. And I want another one, but I also know that I could very well I could sew one of these myself. I do love supporting other makers. Occasionally, it's just not in my budget, and I do need to find ways around that. So occasionally I do make my own bags, and they're cute and they're usually pretty functional. I've made a couple for my friend that also knits, and she seems to like them, and I like the process of it. I made a new one for her for Christmas, and a few things I could change, but I really like the pocket kind of detail that I added to it. I very recently bought us both some very, very cute matte black embroidery scissors that have a really nice point on them, and I made a little pocket where the scissors kind of slot into, where they're nice and accessible, but they aren't going to kind of flop around and maybe damage whatever the project is. So I want to do one for myself with a very similar style and design with a few modifications. So that might be a project that I show next week. We'll see. Anyways, socks. This is the finished sock that I need to complete the pair of. This is kind of an experimental sock design that I did. My partner and I in September ended up going to, that's how long these have been on the needle, ended up going to Edmonton, which is in the next province over to us. Is about a 7.5 hour drive from where we are currently. And an hour in, I realized that I didn't have any knitting with me. I didn't have a stitch. I didn't have yarn. I didn't have notions. I didn't have needles. I had nothing. And it was excruciating to be the passenger in a vehicle with so much downtime and nothing to work on. I had nothing. So we ended up getting to our destination. We checked into our hotel. I Googled the nearest local yarn store. We went, and I spent way too much money at that yarn store. If you know, you know. But I did end up buying this really lovely, oh, there we go, this really lovely skein of sock yarn. And I ended up buying myself a new needle as well. I do like DPNs. I really like 9-inch circulars, but for that purpose and also to kind of round out my needle stash a little bit, I ended up buying myself a really long one. This is, I always knit 2.25 millimeter needles. I think this is a 40-inch cable. Maybe. I'll have to look and see. I think I have the packaging around here somewhere, but I ended up buying a skein of yarn, the needle, this really adorable little notions tin by a Canadian company called Firefly Notes Online. Well, fireflynotesonline.com. They are out of Richmond, BC, here in Canada. They have an Etsy shop that I will link. And this is the one that I bought in Edmonton. And it's adorable and I love it. And I ended up ordering another one. This is a tiny little one. I keep my stitch markers and things in this little one. I have another little one that just has sock. Why is my brain dying? The tiny little round stitch markers, specifically sock stitch markers. They're really small. They are. I have the Cocoa Knits variety pack of stitch markers, and they're like really small ones. I use almost exclusively for sock knitting. I've lost a couple, so I did end up ordering a pack of knockoffs from one of those websites. I'm not going to specify which one, because I keep losing them, but I love them because they're small enough and thin enough to go onto my sock needles with absolutely no issues. They don't stretch anything out. I'm not fighting with this thing that has, 5 millimeters of extra room around my tiny little sock needles. So I really like having those sort of designated stitch markers for when I do socks. If I do socks in the round, in just the 9-inch circulars, I always have a pair of those on there. I might even have, I have sets clipped into a couple of my sock bags that I use kind of very specifically, very similar to this here. Just have like a light bulb safety pin and then put my stitch markers on the inside so that I always have a set in any bag that I use specifically for socks. But I'm rambling, I know. Anyways, this is how far I got on my second sock. I need to kind of sit down and count out this one. I didn't end up buying any stitch markers. I didn't have any with me when we were there. This is just my sort of rough and dirty attempt at a sock. I've knit a bunch of socks, so I kind of have a very good idea of what fits me and what I like. This, I saw something very similar on Pinterest and I wanted to try it. So it is a toe up sock that has a Flegel style heel increase. Instead of going and doing my increases, say one stitch on either side of the middle, I ended up doing a knit front and back into the center bar in between my, I guess, first half of the back and my second half of the back. And then I did my Flegel style increases up here until I hit my total stitch count. And then I turned my heel the way that I would typically turn a heel for a heel flap and gusset. And then I did my instep decreases kind of right alongside it. I do like how it folds down into this very flat, kind of very easy to fold, very easy to store sock, and it just has this strange looking tab on the end. Little bit of ankle, and then a knit one round, knit and purl the other round, purled cuff. So it's not quite as cinched as a standard knit one, purl one cuff. And I think it looks really good. So this is the next sock that I need to get off of my needles. This might not be my favorite sock in the entire world. This might not be my favorite fit sock or sock fit. I don't know what's happening to me. This might not be my favorite sock fit I've ever done, but I really like the story that kind of comes with it because it was a very comical situation. We were driving and I went to go grab my knitting and I literally went, I don't have any knitting. And my partner looked at me and he's driving and he's like, what? It's like, I would have expected you to forget anything else, your charger, your toothbrush, your bathing suit, because we were staying at a hotel that had a pool and we were kind of thinking about going to the wave pool at the mall. It's like, I would have expected you to forget anything else except your knitting. Yeah. So these are always going to have a special little place in my heart as my very, very expensive replacements for being the passenger princess, because there's nothing worse than being the passenger on a long trip when you have just tons of downtime and you don't have anything to work on. I don't recommend it. If you know, you know. So I feel justified in spending as much as I spent on these socks to make sure that I had socks. I probably should try and figure out what the yarn name is. I will probably have to post it in the video afterwards. I don't seem to have the tag in here for some reason. Very cool thing about this particular skein of yarn that I actually didn't notice was that when I was winding it up in the yarn store, which was very cool, they had a little spot in the back where they had a Swift and cake. Why am I having such a brain fog today? They had a station where you could cake up your skeins directly in the store. I love it. It was kind of like transportable. I'm probably going to see if I can replicate that at home. My setup at home is not awesome. I have to pull it out and set everything up every time I want to cake up a skein. And that it was basically a wooden sawhorse from IKEA that had an umbrella style swift and then yarn winder. There we go. Yarn winder attached to the top of it. And so it just kind of sat in the corner, and then you pull it out, open up the umbrella swift, put on your skein, and then go from there. I really, really want one. But when I was caking this up, and it's just so cute, it's kind of hard to see. It's got these soft, kind of muddy taupes and purples and blues that I really, really like. But it had 2 identical 50-gram cakes already divided out for you. So I started caking up one and ran into a little bit of an issue. There was a little bit of a tangle, and was wondering why I had this thing flopping, and thought that I had maybe unintentionally cut into the skein. But yeah, they ended up actually just being like 2 identical sort of pre-measured 50-gram 50-gram portions. And I love that. And I do not typically end up using an entire ball or 50 grams of yarn or shouldn't say that. I don't tend to use an entire 100-gram skein of sock yarn. I like my socks shorter than I think a lot of people. So I did this and all of this out of 50 grams. I can usually do 2 shorty style socks out of 50 grams. I'm going to end up using more than that for this pair. I know I'm going to end up going into this one, but I have an idea for some striped socks with contrasting heels, toes, and maybe a cuff with the remainder of this. We'll see how much I require of that. Maybe I'll just do contrasting heels, toe, and cuff, or just heels and toes. But I really, really do like this project. So this is my next sock to get off the needles. I always have a pair of socks. I take my socks with me just about everywhere I go. I usually have it in my purse. I've got a bigger purse. I just throw the whole thing in my little sock bag in my purse. And if I knit on it, great. If not, not that big of a deal, but just make sure that I have something with me 90% of the time. Anyways, last project we're going to talk about that I don't know if I want to keep it or not. This is one of those ones that I kind of found in the back of my closet, and I found it specifically because I needed to take the cable off of it to add to switch out with the cable on my mom's shawl that I'm knitting, because the one that I had was too small. It was very congested. It basically like choked out the cable and the needles, and I was wrestling with the fabric way more than I wanted. I knew that I had an extra long cable somewhere in my stash in my whips, and I like cute project bags, but I also like functional project bags. This is a very functional project bag. This is a Husky, basically a mini tool bag that you can get I got this from the Home Depot by my house. It's got these little fabric pockets in the front, and it holds so much. And when you open it, it just stays nice and open. So I really like this one. I ended up actually buying my mom the same thing for her project because she crochets baby blankets. And sometimes you need a bigger space and something sturdy with maybe like a hard bottom that's going to stay open for when you're working on your projects. But I currently have, this is going to be a giant mess, this sort of light blue denim tweed sweater that I started. I started doing sort of like a saddle style sleeve here, a double folded collar, and I've got part of, I don't know if this is going to be the front or the back. I did not do any short row shaping on this at all. This was a Walmart find yarn. It's just like Hearts brand yarn. It's almost guaranteed to be all acrylic except for the tweed bits, which is fine. I have a lot of acrylic fast fashion sweaters. I prefer to knit with wool, but I know that it's not always feasible. Sometimes you just find a very cute plastic yarn, acrylic yarn. But yeah, so I divided off for the front and back yoke. This is going to be a drop shoulder that I was working on, and I, as you can see, ended up stealing the cable from. So I have access again to a longer cable that I know will work for this project. That's my dog. Hopefully it's not too loud. And I think I'm going to pick this one up again here in the next little bit. Maybe after my sock. But I want to see what this looks like. It's not laying great at the moment. The collar, the double folded collar, kind of sticks up a little bit. The sleeves, or like the saddle sort of style increases, aren't sitting really well, but I don't have the weight of the sleeves and the body on the sweater right now to really know how it's going to fit. I think I want to do the front and back yoke, connect for the body, and then maybe a steam block and see from there whether or not this is something that is going to be viable to continue putting time into. I really like this yarn. I think it's very, very cute. I think this will be a very cute little around the house sweater. It might be like cute and oversized with a pair of jeans tucked in. I do French tucks on my sweaters. That's just how I am. That's what I like, but I think fits my body type more. And yeah, so this is one of my from the deep that I am going to try working on again. And I'm really hoping that this ends up being something that I will like. And if not, then I just frog it. And that's okay, because I can use this yarn for granny squares. I kind of want to do a granny square kind of want to do a granny square sort of Afghan blanket, and this plus white I think would be very cute, or even this plus like a black, because it has the black in there. You can kind of see it a little bit better. It's got the black tufts here. and a little bit of like a cream and a little bit of a taupey beige. Any of those colors would be really cute accent colors for that. So if this project doesn't turn out to be a sweater, this yarn's definitely not going to go to waste. I don't have any crocheted blankets in my house, and that definitely needs to be rectified because crocheted blankets have been like such a staple in my life forever. We have ones that I don't know if it was my grandmother that made them, or just a different member of the family, or if they were gifted, or if they were purchased from the thrift store. But we've always had a cozy handmade crochet blanket in the house, and I don't want to steal the ones from my parents. So if this doesn't end up being a sweater, I'm not going to be that sad, but we're going to give it one more try before we frog it, because I think some of my issues are things that will rectify themselves with a little bit more progress. So, okay, well, that was everything that I have to show you from this past week. Some of my new projects that I want to be working on in the following weeks. And thank you so much for being here. I'm finding myself much more excited to sit down and knit, having filmed these videos with the anticipation of I want to show you guys my progress and talk about my progress, show my finished objects, because I love my people. I think they get a little bit tired of hearing me talk about my knitting and showing them every tiny little step of the process. It's like, oh, look, I did 10 rounds. Look at what I've done. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this with me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching. Buster! Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed watching this and being here with me. I hope you are enjoying whatever project you're working on right now, that you're getting lots of time and satisfaction out of making or crafting, whatever it is that you do as your personal. I don't know. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed being here with me. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments on future videos, different topics that you'd like to see, things that I can improve on going forward, please let me know. Please be kind. The internet can be cruel. I don't want that to be this space. So I hope you guys have an amazing next week, and we'll see you next time. Bye. I very recently bought let's give this a second. I recently bought both of us some very cute black tapestry needles, not tapestry,